I'm Claudia, 68. This morning, I woke up in the arms of my husband, Robert, in the bedroom that has become ours, in the house that has truly become a home. Sunlight filtered through the windows overlooking the gardens we tend together, and the aroma of the coffee Robert brews every morning wafted through the air. At this age, I'm happier than I've ever been, not because of his wealth or his beautiful house, but because he truly sees me and loves me for who I am. But it wasn't always like this. 8 months ago, I was at a crossroads, facing a heart-wrenching situation. My son, Ethan, and his girlfriend, Lily, came to our house for dinner. Robert, a successful real estate tycoon, decided it was time to have a serious talk with them. After Maria, our housekeeper, served an excellent dinner, we moved to the living room. Robert looked at them calmly and said, "I want to talk to you both about Claudia, about your relationship with her and the expectations that have arisen." Ethan shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "I'm not sure what you mean," he said, trying to play dumb. But Robert didn't back down. "I think you do. You've been overly interested in my business and investments, and your attitude towards Claudia has changed drastically since she started living with me." Lily started to speak, but Robert held up his hand. He continued, "Claudia doesn't need your approval for our marriage or your permission to be happy. What she needs is your unconditional love, just as she has loved you throughout your life." Ethan's face turned red with embarrassment and anger. "I do love my mother," he insisted. But Robert saw through his words.
Do you?
"Because it seems to me that you're more interested in what you might gain from her being with me." The tension in the room was palpable. Lily stared at her hands, and Ethan glared at Robert with resentment. Robert then told them that they needed to decide what kind of relationship they truly wanted with me. If it was based on genuine care, they were welcome. Otherwise, they were just wasting everyone's time. After they left, Robert asked me if he was too harsh. I told him he was just being honest, and maybe for the first time, Ethan was hearing the truth. Let me rewind to how I got here. I was living in a small town, in a house I'd shared with my late husband, George, for over 40 years. George was a hard, working mechanic. He was a simple man, but he gave me a home and a family. We raised Ethan together, but as he grew older, we drifted apart. One Tuesday afternoon, when I was 67, the tornado siren started wailing. I was in the kitchen, making my usual afternoon tea. The weatherman had mentioned possible storms, but in our area, it was a common occurrence. I should have paid more attention. The wind picked up at an alarming rate, and the sky turned an ominous green-black. I grabbed my emergency radio and heard the news that a large tornado was heading towards our neighborhood. I had only minutes to gather what I could. I stuffed photo albums, important documents, and a few pieces of jewelry into a suitcase. It was heartbreaking to leave behind so many memories, but I had no choice. I huddled in the basement, clutching George's old jacket, listening to the terrifying sound of the tornado tearing through our home. When the silence finally came, I climbed the basement steps. What I saw was a nightmare. My house was gone, reduced to rubble. The kitchen table where Ethan used to do his homework was embedded in the remains of the garage wall. I stood there, in the ruins of my life, and cried for the first time since George's funeral. The neighbors took me in that night, but their homes were also damaged, and they had their own families to worry about. The Red Cross set up shelters, but the thought of sleeping in a room full of strangers made me feel even more alone. I knew I had to call Ethan. He lived about 45 minutes away in the city, in a nice neighborhood. He had moved there 5 years ago when he got a promotion at an insurance firm. We weren't close, but he was my only family. I used my neighbor's phone to call him. When he answered, I told him about the tornado and that my house was gone. He initially said I could come over, and I felt a wave of relief. But when I arrived at his house, things took a turn for the worse. His girlfriend, Lily, a 30-year-old marketing executive, greeted me with a fake smile. She was wearing expensive clothes and had an air of superiority. Ethan and Lily exchanged a look, and then they sat me down in their living room. They told me that they valued their privacy and that this was their first home together, and they needed space. I was shocked and heartbroken. I told them I wouldn't be a burden, that I could help with cooking and cleaning. But they were firm. Lily suggested some extended stay places near the mall, and Ethan offered me a few $100s to get started. It felt like a slap in the face. I had raised him, sacrificed so much for him, and now he was turning me away. I left their house with my few belongings, feeling lost and alone. I drove to a Walmart parking lot and sat there as the sun went down, trying to figure out where I could sleep. That's when I remembered a business card I'd kept in my wallet for almost 50 years. It was from Robert, my high school sweetheart. He was 19 when we dated, and I was 18. He worked at his father's construction company after school and had big dreams. He promised to come back for me, to build a life together. But life got in the way. He went to college, and we gradually lost touch. I met George, and we got married. I spent 3 nights sleeping in my car before I found the courage to call Robert. When I finally did, his voice on the phone was deep and familiar. After a moment of silence, he recognized me. When I told him about the tornado and how Ethan had turned me away, he didn't hesitate. He said he was coming to get me. An hour later, a sleek black Mercedes pulled into the parking lot. Robert stepped out. Even after 50 years, I recognized him immediately. He had gray hair and lines around his eyes, but his eyes were still the same warm brown that I remembered. He walked towards my car and said, "You look beautiful." Those words made me break down. All the pain, all the tears I'd held back for so long came pouring out. He opened the car door, helped me out, and wrapped his arms around me. He took me to his house, a magnificent estate on the outskirts of the city. It was a beautiful, understated mansion surrounded by gardens and a large greenhouse. Inside, it was warm and inviting, filled with books and family photos. Over lunch, I told him about my life with George, about Ethan, and about the tornado. He listened intently, and when I finished, he took my hand and said, "I never stopped loving you. Every success I achieved was so that I could be worthy of you, if you ever came back." Living with Robert was like discovering a new version of myself. We fell into a routine. In the morning, we'd have coffee on the porch while he read business reports, and I watched the birds. In the afternoon, we'd walk around the gardens, and in the evenings, we'd talk about our lives. 3 weeks into my stay, Ethan called. He was curious about where I was living and suggested that I could stay in their guest room again. I told him I was perfectly happy where I was and that I'd found someone who valued me. He was shocked and tried to convince me that I was making a mistake, but I stood my ground. 6 months after that fateful phone call in the parking lot, Robert and I got married in his back garden. It was a simple, intimate ceremony with only a few close friends and family. Ethan came to the wedding, but I could see the calculation in his eyes. He was more interested in Robert's wealth than in my happiness. After the wedding, Ethan started calling regularly, always finding a way to bring up Robert's business. Lily also started sending me expensive gifts, trying to buy her way back into my good graces. But I knew what they were up to. 3 months later, Ethan called me one evening while Robert was at a business dinner. He asked me about Robert's assets and what would happen in the future. I was furious. I reminded him of how he'd turned me away when I needed him the most. I hung up on him, feeling angry and hurt. Robert found me crying in our bedroom when he got home. He comforted me and told me that it wasn't my fault. He said that Ethan had made his own choices as an adult. Looking back, I realized that the tornado that destroyed my old life was a blessing in disguise. It led me back to Robert, and I finally found the love and happiness I'd always longed for. And although I may never have the close relationship with Ethan that I once dreamed of, I have something real and honest now, and that's enough. Now, I'm curious about you who are listening to my story. What would you do if you were in my place? Have you ever been through something similar?
Comment below.
And meanwhile, I'm leaving on the final screen 2 other stories that are channel favorites, and they will definitely surprise you. Thank you for watching until here.